Hello, ladies and gentlemen, Green Screen Mangs coming at you with one final video about Engage before the game comes out. I figured I'd pull out the old green. It's been collecting dust in my cabinet for years now. And I figured, let's use it for Engage. Can give you guys some nice footage with me talking to you with some gameplay footage in the background. It looks nice, so why not? So this is not a news video. I've pretty much covered everything I want to cover about the game. I didn't cover it very extensively these past few weeks, but that's just because they overwhelmed us with content, and it honestly didn't feel worthwhile sitting through analyzing all of it anymore. Because I felt like at some point they've given us so much information about the game that it almost doesn't feel worthwhile covering it anymore. I watched all of it, but I stopped doing the news videos once they started to just dump the content on us. And before I continue, I would like to say that yes, I am aware of the elephant in the room, and I will address it very briefly. I know there are leaks. People have tried sending me leaks. I'm not personally interested in playing them myself. I might keep a little bit of a lookout for them, but I'm not going to talk about any of the leaks in this particular video. In this video, I'm going to be talking about my hopes and dreams for Engage, kind of like give one final opinion about it before it releases, and just talk about some of the things I'm excited for, some of the things I'm not so excited about, depending on what I've seen. As for any kind of spoilers, I would ask you guys to remain respectful and don't post them in the comment section. If you are going to post something that's kind of spoilery, then at least put a spoiler tag on it, like put spoilers and then go down a little bit so people actually have to click on read more to read your comments. And then at that point, they only have themselves to thank if they click on a comment with a spoiler warning in it. I know we've said repeatedly that this story is going to be a bit cringe, but there are still a lot of people who do not wish to get spoiled, and I think we should respect those people. This has never been a problem in my comment section before. You guys have generally been really great at this. I have not really had to delete any comments during past releases of Fire Emblem, so I don't expect I'll have to do it now, but in the off chance that I'll see a spoiler, I will delete it, so just be a little bit on the lookout for that. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, let's just talk a little bit about Engage, shall we? Am I excited? Am I not excited? Do I think it will be a good game? Do I think it will not be a good game? Again, I'm just going to ramble a little bit in this video, so if that's your cup of tea, then sit down and get comfortable and let's talk a little bit about Engage together, shall we? So, I will say that over these past few weeks, even though we've gotten a lot of content dumped on us, I feel like the reception towards Engage have gotten a little bit more positive compared to what it was a few months ago. I remember seeing my audience being very negative about this game, especially when it just had been announced that there was a lot of hatred towards it, because people didn't like the way it looked. They thought it looked like a cheap Genshin Impact knockoff Emblem. They said this isn't Fire Emblem, this is just some stupid gacha game. And there are some people who still say that, but I actually ran a poll on my channel and I polled my audience, asking them, how are you feeling about Engage? Are you excited? Are you neutral? Are you worried? Or do you hate it? And I expected a lot more people to select either worried or hate it, but it was actually a very small subsection of my channel. There were quite a lot of people who were just neutral on it, but about half of the people that responded to the poll were actually excited, which I wouldn't have guessed a few months ago. And very few people actually selected I hate it. That was actually kind of nice to see, and personally, I'm a little bit in the same camp. When I initially saw Engage, when I saw the footage, I was like, this is cheap, this is bad, I don't like this at all. But then the more I watched of it, the more optimistic I became, at least in terms of gameplay. I liked the gameplay that I saw. The animations were fantastic, they flowed nicely, the gameplay looked very entertaining. I mean, Fire Emblem is always going to be fun to play. No matter if it's a bad Fire Emblem game, it's still a good game, because Fire Emblem at its core is just fun to play. It will always be fun to play. Unless they drastically change the Fire Emblem formula, I foresee that every Fire Emblem game will be entertaining in some way. And the more I look at this game, the more I am just reminded of Awakening/Fates. It really feels to me like that is the era that they are trying to recreate. When I look at this game, I see Awakening and Fates with improved graphics. The gameplay is so similar to Fates, and it seems like we'll get more of a simple Fire Emblem game similar to Awakening that just happens from start to finish. There are no branching paths, there are no route splits, at least no big route splits that we are aware of. And it seems like the game will just be a simple Fire Emblem experience from start to finish. And you know what? I'm here for that. I'm here for that. I think that's actually good. Now, I don't have the sources directly in front of me here, so take this with a grain of salt, but I heard that Engage is the most pre-ordered Fire Emblem game to date. Again, I don't know if it's true. I just heard it. Source, I dreamt it, or whatever, you know? Maybe someone in the comment section can confirm this, but apparently a lot of people are pre-ordering this game, and I can only imagine that the great success of Three Houses has carried over a little bit to Engage. A lot of people who tried out Tree Houses and liked it will now give Engage a chance. And this may sound weird, but I actually have a feeling that Engage will be better for newer players. It will be good at luring new players into the franchise. For everything that I dislike about Engage, from how it looks to how it seems kind of cringy in the story department, I do actually think Engage will do a good job of drawing newer players into the franchise and maybe making them go check out some of the older games, especially considering we have the emblems, which allows you to get familiar with past main characters. Now, the emblem rings themselves are not a mechanic that I've been overly fond of. I feel like they're kind of milking nostalgia in a very cheap way, but it is undoubtedly a good way to get newer fans acquainted with the older Fire Emblem lords, and if it even makes just some of them go back to try the older games, then I think that's a victory in my book. So even though the jaded, cynical veteran in me looks at Engage and says, "Oh, this game might not be for me," I can, at the very least, appreciate the steps that they are taking to try and appeal to newer players. If anything, I feel like Tree Houses failed a little bit in this regard. Tree Houses was a little bit too complex, and I spoke to a lot of people who played Tree Houses as their first Fire Emblem, and they told me that there was just too much customization and too many rules, and they didn't really get into it, and they kind of stopped playing it after a while. Again, these are just stories. I don't have any data to back this up or anything, but I kinda understand why someone would find the Tree Houses a little bit overwhelming. It was a very micromanaging intensive game, whereas Engage seems to be a little bit more akin to traditional Fire Emblem, where you just get units and go out and fight. I don't think we'll be spending hours in the Somniel customizing our units and micromanaging their skills. I mean, I'm sure there's going to be a bit of min-maxing involved for people who want to do that, but I get the sense that this is going to be more traditional. You know, just get some units, go out there and fight, and maybe you can customize them if you want to. And that's honestly the perfect way to play Fire Emblem for me. Now, obviously, I'm not going to say it's going to be perfect. I'm going to have to play the game myself to, know if it's good or not. But as I'm sitting here thinking about Engage, I'm a little bit more on the optimistic side than the pessimistic side. And looking at the polling that I did with my audience, I think you guys feel the same way, and that's good. Now, of course, with expectation also comes the prospects of being incredibly disappointed, but hey, we are Fire Emblem fans. This is something that we're used to. We can deal with it. So whether or not I think Engage will be a good game or not, I pretty much had the same opinion throughout this entire news cycle. Every piece of footage that I've seen have just reinforced my thoughts on the game, and that is the fact that it's probably going to be very fun to play, but the story is going to be cringe on a level that we haven't seen since Fire Emblem Fates. In fact, I predict that the story of Engage will be even cringier than Fates. It looks to me like they're trying pretty hard with Engage. They're trying hard with characterization and world building. Fates was mostly bad because it just lacked substance. Like, they didn't really do much in the way of world building, and characters felt very hollow. Again, we know that like around 75% of the original script from Fates was slashed for some reason, which is why the game just ended up feeling like a skeleton in terms of a story. With Engage, I think they're going to try much harder to actually establish a world and characters, and they're going to focus more on the narrative. We're going to be running around on the minimap. They're going to try really hard to hammer home the different locations. And that is the reason why I think that is going to be more cringy than Fates, because I think when you have bad writing and you try hard, you end up getting much worse story than if you just don't try at all. With Fates, you can kind of turn off your brain and just like not really notice it much, and you would be fine for the most part. But I have a feeling that Engage is going to pull some absolutely cringe stuff on us. And the reason why I say this is they recently released a 15-minute gameplay trailer, like a full gameplay trailer, and they showed some cutscenes in full. Up until now, we've only seen snippets of cutscenes, but now we got to see fully voice-acted cutscenes, and I'm gonna tell you guys, it was bad. It was really bad. It's like they're doing all the tropes that I hate when it comes to modern Fire Emblem. Just very cheesy villains, very cheesy lines. And while the voice actors are doing a good job with their characters, like I don't think the voice actors are bad, but I feel like almost how they're directed to speak is bad. It's kind of the same issue that I had with Triangle Strategy. The voice actors were great, but the way they were directed to speak was not. And there is something about the way the characters speak and engage that just feels off-putting to me. Like they're not really talking like real people should. And it just seems like they've taken inspiration from a bunch of games that are not very familiar to me. And that is what I've heard from a lot of people, by the way. People say that the direction and art style and the music and the way people speak in this game is taken from other popular games, like Genshin Impact and other, popular games that I've never played. So it makes sense that this would feel off to me. At least the story does. The gameplay looks fine, but the story, I have a feeling I'm going to make fun of it. I'm going to try not to be overly critical on my first playthrough, because I know a lot of people don't like that. You don't like tuning into a streamer and just hearing them complain for an hour. That's not fun. I'm definitely going to reserve my criticism until I beat the game. I'll probably point out here and there when I think something ridiculous happens, but don't expect me to just sit and bash the game from start to finish like I did with Fates when that came out. I know that's not very popular. However, I will be doing a full review of the game when I'm done beating it, and there I will hold nothing back. Like in that review, I will give you guys a warning, like I will be brutally honest, and if you click on this video just expecting me to praise the game, if it sucks, then you're clicking on the wrong video. So definitely look forward to that. If you want to see me tearing into the game, if it is bad, it's a big disclaimer here, if it is bad, then I'll save my harshest criticisms for that video. Otherwise, I'm just going to try and turn off my brain, not overthink it, and just try to enjoy the game for what it is, not look too deeply into the story, and just, try to enjoy Fire Emblem in its simplest forms. I think it is important that we veterans, and I do consider myself a veteran of the series, I've been playing Fire Emblem for 15 years, I think it's important that we try to be a little bit more receptive to modern Fire Emblem, and try to, not judge it too hard, just because it's not the Fire Emblem we're used to, you know that meme of Skinner and Simpsons going like, am I so out of touch? No, it's the children who are wrong. I feel like we can very quickly turn into that guy when we criticize modern Fire Emblem, because we're so used to the old games that we know and love that we're unable to kind of open ourselves up to the new games. And the truth is that while I will always like old school Fire Emblem more than modern Fire Emblem, there's a lot of good stuff about the new games that is definitely worth appreciating, and I think if you have too cynical of a view of them, you might just deprive yourself of a good gameplay experience, and I think it's, that would be a shame. So my goal going into Engage is to try and temper my expectations and just kind of have an open mind and see if the game manages to sway me, and once I'm done beating it, I'm just going to sit down, I'm going to think, I'm going to reflect on it, and really think like, did I really like this game? Did this game make an impact on me? And then I'll save my thoughts for the video. Up next, I would like to talk a little bit about some of the character designs that have appealed to me personally. There's a lot of characters in Engage that I think look utterly ridiculous, with way too many accessories tacked onto them for the sake of just being quirky and edgy, and I definitely don't like that. But there are some very good looking characters too, characters that I actually appreciate. But before I get to that, I just want to touch briefly upon Alar's design, a very controversial topic. I had a thought the other day and kind of came to a bit of an epiphany that Alar's design, while incredibly controversial and very easy to make fun of, it's a very recognizable design. It's a silly design, and I don't think it looks good, but whenever you see a picture of Alar posted online, you immediately think about Engage. And I think that has to be good for the game's marketing. And I'm wondering if that's the reason why they picked such a weird design. They knew that it was probably going to be controversial, but sometimes controversy can be a good thing because it makes people talk. When Engage first was announced and the trailer was released, everyone was just up in arms about this, like posting pictures of Colgate toothpaste and just memeing on it and just making fun of it and laughing. And a lot of people probably think that is bad for a game because they go like, oh no, they're making fun of our game. That probably means they're not going to buy it. But I actually think it can have the opposite effect, where people really notice the avatar. I mean, just think about it. It's not like we're gonna boycott a Fire Emblem game just because the avatar looks a little weird. And the more I think about it, the more I think that that might actually be a good thing, because it helps the character stand out, it makes the character recognizable, and if anything, it gets people talking, and that is generally good for marketing. As for the character themselves, I think Alar is going to be obnoxious, very similar to Corrin. We're going to see a lot of avatar worship. Alar is going to be a block of wood in terms of personality, although I am a little bit intrigued about this evil arc that they clearly have going on. I really like that gif of Alar looking into the camera and then suddenly turning evil. It's a very memeable format. You can do a lot of fun stuff with this, and people have. More meme content is always a good thing in my book. But anyway, I want to talk about a few characters that I really like so far. Diamant. He looks badass. I think if it wasn't for Alar, he would probably be main character material. I really like tough, brawly dudes in Fire Emblem, and this guy looks like a tough, brawly dude. Looks like a combination between Alm and Hector. I'm getting a lot of like feisty vibes from him, and I do think he's going to be one of the more interesting main characters. Another character that has caught my eye is of course Chloe, or Chloe. I don't really know how her name is pronounced yet. I think she has a very elegant design. I have a feeling I'm not really going to find her all that interesting personality-wise, but her design is just very elegant. She looks like a very traditional Pegasus Knight, and I've always been fond of Pegasus Knights. But my best girl in Engage is actually Citrine. The more I look at Citrine, the more I love her design. I actually think she is one of the most beautiful female characters in Engage, and the simplicity and the fact that she's not over-exaggerated is actually what I find appealing about her. She doesn't like have cleavage in your face, she doesn't have tons of accessories or makeup or jewelries everywhere, and I very much foresee her being my best girl, at least at first. Maybe some other waifus will catch my eyes, but so far, I definitely got my eyes on Citrine. Do you guys have any characters that have stood out to you? If so, let me hear about them in the comments section. So, I did say earlier on in this video that I am optimistic regarding Engage and its gameplay, but I do have a big hurdle and one big fear, and that is the turn wheel mechanic that will be making its way back into the game. I haven't checked out the leaks, so I don't know how it works yet, and even if I did, I wouldn't spoil it for you guys, but based on the screenshots that they released in the news cycle, we have seen what looks like the early game with a player having 10 charges at the turn wheel. And if that is the case, if it's going to be like Mila's turn wheel in Echoes, where you're just drowning in charges, then I think that's going to be very bad for the game. Now, whenever I bring up the turn wheel, I inevitably get a bunch of comments in my comment section from people saying, if you don't like it, don't use it. I'm not gonna turn this video into like a turn wheel discussion, but I will just say that I think that is the dumbest counter-argument that anyone can ever make, because the fact that a mechanic is present in the game means that the game will be designed around it. Even if I opt to not use the turn wheel, the fact that it is there means that the game might be a lot more trial and error based. Like for example, in Tree Houses, every single reinforcement ended up being ambush spawns, because they needed to eat through your turn wheel charges to give you a challenge. I am absolutely convinced that that was the reason why they made that decision. And I really hope that they're not going to do the same thing for Engage. Now again, I've accepted that the turn wheel is here to stay. It's such a popular mechanic in Fire Emblem, people really like it. I even did a poll on that, asking my audience whether or not they thought the turn wheel was a good mechanic, and an overwhelming amount of you voted yes, which surprised me a little bit. But I guess I just have to accept that I'm in the minority here, and that the way I want Fire Emblem to be isn't necessarily how everyone wants Fire Emblem to be. And you know what? That's completely fine. I'm not some egotistical maniac who feels like Fire Emblem should cater to me and me alone. I understand that a lot of people like the turn wheel, and so they're gonna keep including the turn wheel. I just hope they don't end up making some of the same mistakes that they did in Tree Houses, where it turns into a game of just trial and error, where you just have infinite charges and you just burn through them super quickly in an attempt to beat the maps. I would also like if they give us some kind of incentive not to use it, whether it be an achievement or some kind of game mod where we can toggle them off. That would be very nice, because of course I am hoping that this game is Iron Man friendly. If it is, I very much look forward to streaming it. Now I'm also hoping that maybe we'll be able to do other kinds of creative streams, like if we're able to visit the base feature of other castles and go and like recruit their units as like avatar units, then I could do something similar to coring quests, where I go and recruit your units and do a full playthrough. Stuff like that is really fun, and I hope they include it. Alright, so at this point, I think I've rambled on long enough about Engage, and it's time to finish up this video with some closing thoughts, and then I'm going to tell you guys what I plan to do moving forward with Engage on my channel. So overall, I will say I am very excited to play Engage. I think it's going to be a fun experience. It's always fun to play a new Fire Emblem game, regardless of whether or not the story is bad or not. I hope the gameplay is good. If it's not, I expect that we'll see a lot of people dunking on it, but we'll see. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, even though it contains a bunch of things that I am personally not very interested in, talking about all the minigames, collecting animals, exploration, and stuff like that. As long as that is just side stuff that I don't have to do, then I'll be absolutely fine. But if I have to fish and pet cats and collect rocks in order to be optimal for maddening mode, yeah, I'm going to be a bit annoyed at that. Tree Houses definitely fell into that trap with fishing, where, you know, you could skip fishing, but if you were playing on maddening mode, you really wanted as many resources as you could get your hands on. So you would be very foolish if you skipped out on the fishing events. So you'd end up having to do these like hour-long fishing sessions, and it was so tedious. Fun at first, but when you did like your third or fourth run, it just became such a bore. So I really hope we won't fall into that trap where Somniel becomes the Monastery 2.0, where we spend like 50% or more of our in-game time. I really hope that's not going to be the case. I don't mind the My Base feature being there, I just don't want it to dominate the game like Treehouse's Monastery did. The Monastery of Treehouses is one of the reasons why I haven't gone back and replayed that game, even though I thought it was a very good one, just because I just don't want to deal with all the Monastery min-maxing. So yeah, a little worried about the Somniel, but otherwise I'm very excited. I think it's going to be a fun game, and I look forward to sharing it with you all. So before I end this video, I just want to talk about what I plan to do personally. I've talked about this multiple times on stream already, but it might be warranted repeating it here for those of you who don't watch my live streams. I'm going to be streaming it as soon as it comes out, which will be midnight to Friday, my time. And since I'm European, that means that I'll get my hands on it a little bit earlier than you Americans. I'm 6 hours ahead of you. So depending on your time zone, I might begin streaming a little bit before or after midnight. Just check your time zone versus mine. I'm on Central European time, if you want to know when I'm going to begin streaming. And when I begin streaming it, I am going to stream it for a very long while. I'm going to stream it until I don't want to stream it anymore. Then I'm going to go take a break, eat some food, go sleep. Then I'm going to get back up and continue streaming. And the reason why I want to do it this way is because for once in my YouTube career, I would like to finish the game at the same time as my viewers do. Every single time a new Fire Emblem game has come out, I've Let's Played it, and as a result, I've always been lagging behind the rest of my players. They've like completed their 5th playthrough of the game by the time I finish my first one. So I'm going to stream it on hard mode. I'm not going to stream it on maddening. I don't want to play maddening on my first playthrough. I don't care if the game is easier than other games. I just want to play through it very quickly, enjoy the story. I'm not going to skip the story. I'm going to play the whole game in full, and I'm going to stream it every single day until I beat it. I don't know how many streams I will need to beat the game. 5 streams, 6 streams, 7 streams. I don't know. I don't know how long the game is. But I plan to do a full playthrough of it live in front of you guys. And then once I'm done with my playthrough on hard mode, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to make an in-depth review of the game. And this video will be for most of you guys who are on the fence and don't want to buy the game yet. You're waiting to see if it's good or not. I'm hoping that maybe this video will help you reach a decision on whether or not you want to play Engage or not. If you are one of those people who are holding on to your money and you don't want to buy the game yet. And then once I'm done with that review, I'm going to release a traditional maddening mode Let's Play on my channel. I will be doing daily uploads of this Let's Play, but I'm also going to try to sprinkle in some other content here and there. Don't worry, Advanced Wars bros, I won't neglect you completely in this period. But it will be a period where the channel will be mainly Fire Emblem focused again, at least for a little while. Now, a part of me is very scared that they'll suddenly just dump the reboot camp on us out of nowhere, and that would be terrible for me because that means I would have to divide my playtime between these two games, but hopefully they'll hold the reboot camp for a little longer. I do think they will release it in 2023. It's just a question of when, but I hope they'll let me play Engage for a little bit before they release it. A bit of a selfish request, I know, but you know, it would be terrible if they suddenly like announced that it was out tomorrow or something. But yeah, I'm going to marathon stream it. I very much look forward to it. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I very much look forward to experiencing this Fire Emblem game with you all. I'll be using my green screen for the streams, so I'll be having a very unique and cool looking layout that I don't think you guys have seen before on my streams, so very excited to see you guys react to it. And yeah, I hope to see as many of you in the streams as possible, and I very much look forward to it. By the time this video goes up, the Engage stream should already be pre-scheduled on my channel, and I'm going to make sure that it appears on screen right now. So click on it and go click the bell so you'll be notified whenever I go live. I don't know 100% when that will be. It depends on when the game comes out, but I'll be sure to play it as soon as that happens. So thank you so much for watching. I very much look forward to playing Engage with you all. My name has been Mangs, and I'll see you when the game is out.